Welcome to the Get Out Swim podcast, where we discuss all aspects of competitive swimming. I'm Seamus T. Quinn, and I'm a former Division I swimmer and current college and age group swim coach. Today, I'm joined by head coach of Amherst College men's and women's swimming and diving, Connor Beaulieu. Connor is in his first season at Amherst. He spent the last year as an assistant at Georgetown University, where he helped guide the Hoyas men's program to a Big East championship. Prior to that, he coached at Yale University for 3 years, highlighted by helping Yale men win the 200-yard freestyle relay at the Ivy League Championship, set a new school record, and qualify for the NCAA Championships. Additionally, Beaulieu helped mentor one swimmer to a fifth-place mark at the Women's NCAA Championships and helped the women's team to a second-place team finish at Ivy League Championships. Prior to Yale, Beaulieu served as a volunteer assistant coach at the University of Texas for 2 years, helping the Longhorns to a pair of top 10 NCAA team finishes and Big 12 conference titles. Beaulieu has also spent time at Connecticut College and Caltech. In the 2016-2017 season, he helped the Connecticut College women's team to its first top 10 NCAA finish in school history and mentored 11 All-Americans. With Caltech, Beaulieu helped the Beavers break 21 school records and capture the women's conference title for the first time in program history. In our conversation, Connor discusses his abrupt end to an amazing swimming career at Amherst due to injury and the importance of his relationship with head coach Nick Nichols to keep engaged with the sport his senior year. Connor talks about his early coaching years, learning from great mentors and rediscovering his love for swimming. What I admire about Connor is his passion for coaching and willingness to learn from some of the best coaches and swimmers to help inform his own approach to leading a program. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Connor Beaulieu. Welcome to another episode of the Get Out Swim podcast. I'm your host, Seamus T. Quinn, and today I'm joined by Amherst College's newest head coach of men's and women's swimming and diving. He is Connor Beaulieu. So Connor, thanks for hopping on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Seamus. Think this is really cool that we get to do this.
For sure. Yeah. Well, again, I'm excited to just learn more about, your journey in the sport of swimming. I've kind of researched a bit about your background, and it seems like you've really made your way around the country at different, locations within D3 and D1 swimming. So I think that is always, that makes for an interesting story. So excited to learn more about you and just your vision for this Amherst College swimming and diving program. So I guess I'll start by just asking, you're kind of the, next coach, I guess, preceding the kind of legend of of Coach Nick Nichols. And you swam for him at a time. And, he was a longtime head coach at Amherst College Swimming and Diving. And so what does it mean to you to just step into, the role of being a head coach of just a big time NESCAC program with Amherst College? And what were those emotions like just getting that call?
Yeah. No, that's a really fun way to start. I'll kind of back up, coming to Amherst College, swimming for Amherst College was something that was really important to me when I was a teenager. This was definitely my number one school, and going through the process and going on trips and everything like that. And that connection I had with Nick wasn't really about the swimming part of it. It was just that understanding that I had an opportunity to go to a school where academics and athletics were kind of weighed similarly, or at least the value that we put into them was similar. And he really respected that and appreciated it, and really kind of empowered us to navigate our own ways through that. And I really respected that out of him. And I think as I've gone through my own career and my own journey and getting to work with some just really, really phenomenal mentors and people who have looked out for me and really given me a lot of really great lessons, that environment and that culture is something that always stood out to me, and always was something that I felt like Nick's legacy at a place like this was way beyond times, accomplishments, trophies, NCAA finishes. It was always those relationships. And as a coach, that's something that I've always really tried to invest in and invest time and care into, and find ways, whether writing workouts, plans, going to meets, all that is always trying to respect the relationship side of this. And so getting to come back here obviously meant a lot, because it was, to me, really building off that legacy. And I think too, I got to swim here at a time really in the middle of Nick's tenure. And so connected to a lot of alums on both sides of my time as a student athlete here that, those relationships meant a lot to me too, from the teammate side, and wanting to preserve that legacy of Nick, but also kind of keep, forging on with this team and trying to continue with the success and do some new things as well. But to go to your primary question there of getting that call, it was really emotional. I think something that we often forget about the coaching side of collegiate swimming is just like that life side of it, and getting to move back up to an area of Massachusetts that I have a lot of love and affection for, being closer to my own family. That part really was special. And then obviously knowing that, like, a lot of years of work and kind of grinding, earning my way through, the assistant coach ranks, knowing that I got to go kind of figure out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to be a head coach at a place that I felt just so much connection to and so much appreciation for. There's a lot of value placed in that, and there's a lot of want to make sure I do this the right way and make sure that I give people that are coming through this program, have been through this program, the kind of opportunities to be authentic and have a lot of agency in what their experience as student athletes at a academically elite school could be.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great answer. And when it comes to, like, I guess going back maybe like 5-10 years, did you ever envision this, like, being able to take over, like your alma mater, or did you have a vision of, like, okay, I want to be a head coach of a, big time D3 program, or did this just kind of work out as like divine intervention, like this was just meant to be?
Yeah, no, that's funny. I'll say this was always a hope and a want, but it was never really the plan either. I think, there's a lot of things outside of your control in the collegiate swim world. And especially when you work at academic institutions, like, or academically based institutions, there's a lot of effort and focus from just the day-to-day standpoint. And so I don't think I spent a lot of time ruminating on, this is the end all be all of jobs that I could have. But I also think that I knew that this job would mean a significant amount to me and the work I was doing and the kind of people I wanted to be around. I think one of the best lessons I got was with Mark Benvenuti at Connecticut College during my year as his assistant. And he gave me a lot of really great ideas and mentorship on what this journey would look like for me. And, he always kind of had me keep a list of, 5 or 6 schools that, I'd want to work at as an assistant, 5 or 6 schools that I'd want to work at as a head coach, and, and then try to, build my career, build my resume, however we want to put it, to put me in a place that those jobs would really make sense. And so, Amherst wasn't the only place that I saw myself and hoped to be at as a head coach. I don't think, if I won't share that list, but that, it had a mix of D1 and D3 schools, and it really wasn't about the level. It was more about the relationships that I feel like I could invest in, the kind of people that I wanted to invest in. And so, yeah, this one is really cool. It's special. It was definitely top of the list, and I'm happy that I get to do this and really spend a lot of my time and energy over my career now building this up in a way that's authentic to me. But I think, like, it definitely wasn't the only plan either, which is a nice feeling to get the top one then.
Yeah. No, I think, I was interested because I always, I see of coaches coming back to their alma mater being able to take over. And so I think I'm always curious, like, was that kind of like a strategic move to, but I think, to your point, like, especially with the advice Coach Mark Benvenuti gave you, like, have an idea of what schools that you could possibly take over, set yourself up for those, opportunities if they do come your way. And I think that's, just invaluable advice to hear for especially young coaches that are trying to make their way. So that's
if I could add to that too, another thought that I was once given is, like, we have to be able to meet our athletes at their wants, right? And if my wants and goals outweigh those of the athletes I'm working for, then I'm really not serving them. I'm really just serving myself. And so, there's a lot of value placed on success in our sport, and whether we're talking about being at a Power 5, Olympic, international level, or NESCAC, like, we all want to win and we want to be competitive, but this isn't this isn't like, how much we can suffer to get there. A lot of it is about, appropriate challenge and appropriate recovery and appropriate kind of deliberations on what this process should be like. And I think something that I really loved about my time here with Nick was that I had a lot of agency, and I could come and ask him for, what was happening and what I needed, and he would hear that and help me translate it into really effective work. And that's something that I really have respected about coaches that kind of find where they're supposed to be at, is they know that they can build that relationship and really respect the wants of the athletes and put those first over and over and over.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that message. Certainly, when we're in a sport like swimming, and just general athletics, like relationship building, is often the kind of driving factor behind like a success with both the coach and the team, right? So I think that's a great message, Connor. Yeah. Well, moving forward now, like, how would you assess just sort of these first few months, as the head coach? Like, I'm sure, there's a lot of busy work coming in and trying to, I guess, navigate the NESCAC world and sort of the D3 head coaching world. So yeah, just where are you at? Where's the team at? Where you guys have two meets, kind of two wins under your belt. And so just where are you at with everything?
Yeah, I'm really happy with where the team is at right now. I think, like, especially this week, we have exams starting next week and everything. Everybody's broken down, tired, and beat up, and trying to get those extra seconds of sleep. But just from an intentionality standpoint, this fall has been incredibly successful, and we're able to come in and get work done that is really in line with our goals. I think one of the things that I do that or brought in that might be a little bit different than what Nick has done in the past is every day of the week we kind of focus on different energy systems, and then I'm able to write 3, 4, sometimes 5 or 6 workouts for different groups based on that energy system, whether it's a cardio based day. I mean, this from your time, Son and Seamus, but like not all cardio workouts are built the same, but also not all swimmers are built the same in terms of what they need from cardio and to get where they're trying to go. So we can all be trying to get from point A to point B, but what that path looks like is very different for everybody. So
Mm.
we individualize a lot of plans. You might be in an upper group one day, a lower group another day. We might be doing your stroke work on a cardio day, but your freestyle work on an anaerobic day. There's a lot of different ways to cut that up, and I think there's nobody on this team that's kind of following the same exact training plan day in and day out. And so I think for as tired and broken down, I think something that you'd see in our results is that people are swimming their events really well, and I'm really proud of that, because I think it shows that we're in a place where we're appropriately challenging everybody, but we're also doing that from a place of understanding what the bigger goals are too. And I think, that can easily become, we're just doing too much, too hard. But I think when we individualize things and we like really kind of cater to individual needs in our training, in our dry land, we're able to kind of scale back, make deliberations, and make adjustments where we need to that are really impactful on the day to day. I was really happy with our first 2 meets. I think how we swam our events, like I said, was way more impressive than the times. I was really thrilled with just our ability to get up and attack swims. I was really impressed with our distance swimmers' ability to hold on to paces as we kind of take those steps forward. And I think the last couple of weeks of training without meets has been really fun and exciting, because we've been able to really kind of think about how we want to race at the end of the year. And so we've been able to do a lot of suit up practices, a lot of timed work, without kind of like the need to travel or anything like that. And that's been really fun, seeing like that success and confidence and that empowerment with our athletes, regardless of where the training is, come through, and how we've been swimming really fast in practices.
Yeah, that's tremendous. Yeah, I was checking out the results of the first few meets, and I thought, yeah, this Amherst College group is in good hands here. So that's great. And what does a typical training week look like for you and your team? I guess in this fall block of I guess with the NESCAC we have a late start, right? So it's
Yep.
we kind of have to as coaches instill in our swimmers that they get in the water, often captain led, practices until that official starting date of the NESCAC season. So yeah, what does that kind of fall training block look like? What does a week look like for Amherst College swimmers and divers?
Yeah, so I think it kind of shifts block by block, but the first 3-4 weeks there before we had meets, um, our afternoons, Monday was like real cardio development. I call it aerobic capacity. Tuesdays more of our interval training, so anaerobic development. Wednesday is lactate sets. Thursday is just a flush out recovery, active recovery. But that'll what's funny about that is I think it's probably our highest yardage day a lot of the weeks.
Mm.
Fridays is really kind of like taking our speed development to another level. I like doing that on Fridays with the idea that our Saturdays, when we have practices and not meets, we can really make that like a Friday night finals into a Saturday morning prelims and kind of go fast in both of those, but also think about warm-ups, think about skill development that allow us to be successful in the intentions of that training, even if we're tired and broken down. The mornings, depending on which group you fall in, I have some people that do one upper, one lower. I have some people that do one lower, one upper. Some people that do both lower, both upper. But Monday, Tuesday for our upper groups is a lot of mile training, a lot of long, low heart rate work. Wednesday, Thursday for those upper groups is like 4 IM and kick development. The lower groups, Monday, Tuesday is a lot more power and like strength development. We do a lot of like kind of Olympic builds, Olympic lifting builds into our bucket and power tower work. And then Tuesday or Wednesday, Thursday mornings for those lower groups is a lot more like contrast training. So going from really heavy stuff into fast agility based training or tempo based training. Since Thanksgiving, that's kind of shifted where we're now more like doing real heavy anaerobic development. So like Mondays are more aerobic maintenance and Tuesdays are a lot more, tight intervals, best average work. The Wednesday lactate sets have progressed. The Thursdays become lower heart rate work, even more, and just really thinking about skill development when we're tired and when we're broken down. And then Friday, Saturdays kind of finding that same piece. I mean, last week, Friday we did the sprint groups did 50 speed, mid distance did 100 to 200 speed, distance group did something more, and then on Saturday we came in and suited up and did all off distance training or off distance events. So 50s, 150s, 300s, and we're able to like kind of get a lot of really usable information out of that, and just thinking about attacking racing, thinking about using skills to manage effort and energy instead of just hitting a pace time, trying to be really intentional with how we race.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's great. Very dynamic, just structure built in with the training, throwing different looks at your swimmers. I like everything I sound. It would be. I imagine myself as a going back as a swimmer. I would have loved to swim for that type of program. That sounds very fun. And just like refreshing to have like different looks. I think in today's day and age, it seems like it's getting more and more important to train different energy systems, like you're talking about. Cardio can fall under like it's kind of like an umbrella term at this point. Like there's all of these different energy systems we can tap into, and then all these different ways of training that we can kind of just like continue to fortify our minds so that when it comes to racing, we're ready to go. So
Yeah.
I like it.
And I'd say to that too is like, all the information's out there too. I mean, and there's a lot of usable, learnable information that we can kind of take from different levels of our sport from the past, and some of the things that more progressive coaches are trying to. And I think something I've been very fortunate with in my time as a coach is that I've gotten to grow up with a lot of young coaches, and I worked the Longhorns swim camps my first couple summers, and there's a group of guys and women coaches that I've kept in touch with since, and they're all over the country, and we share ideas, we share skill drills, we share all this different stuff. And I've never really been afraid of just talking about what we do, because ultimately it's how we do it that kind of gives us success, and it's the understanding of why some of the work is important, and understanding how different pieces of this complement each other, like why on a Monday we don't really go above heart rate 140 or 150, but that's so that Tuesday when we hit heart rate 160 plus, like those times mean more and we can do that more effectively. There's no secrets out there. I don't think there's some secret formula to this. It's can I properly explain, and can I adequately explain why we need to do something? The athletes, the onus on them and the responsibility on them to kind of be intentional with the work that they do. And when there's that disconnect, like I think it's more on me as a coach to make sure that I'm finding ways to get that information across in engaging ways.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like you said, there's a surplus of information out there now. You go to social media, you can find, the hundreds of thousands of coaches that are sharing what they're doing in practice. And certainly, even as a club coach, I'm taking that information. I think it's great. And to your point about just staying in touch with other coaches that you've met along the way in your journey, and then just like sharing information. There's nothing to hide at this point, right? Like everything's out there. That's what I always say too. And like you said,
Yeah.
it's how you deliver it. It's how you're intentional with it, and that can often make the difference in your swimmers, in your swimmer success. So that's great, Connor. I was going to ask. I noticed that with your schedule, there's no sort of mid-season invitational, and I know that this has kind of become a trend now with the NESCAC schools of having a mid-season invitational to kind of have this mid-marker of kind of throw on a suit. Have sort of this championship style approach to the meet, to maybe as a marker for NESCAC championships. So is there something that you might replicate? Like I know you said you guys have been suiting up in practice, or is there something that you can replicate for that? Or is it just something as a coach you don't find as a necessity? Maybe like you can get that in the dual meets that you have and yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. It's something that I spent a lot of time thinking about this year. So I walked in the door pretty late this summer. And to me, as I was kind of looking at our schedule and where it was at and the gaps and meets, Amherst College had never done a midseason invite. And I felt like we were kind of just asking for just an overt amount of fatigue if we added a 3-day meet, as the semester began or something like that. And so, or if we made that decision when the semester began. I think in the future we want to figure out something that really makes sense for us. I mean, I think it's hard. When certain schools like that I've been at, we have kind of the time and the flexibility to build that work in and make sure that academics are being respected. And I think this year, especially, I didn't want to add something so brand new to the team that I felt like it was being disingenuous to all the other responsibilities that they have on campus. I think we're nothing if we're not authentic in why we're here and what we want to do. And so, talking with the captains, talking with different people on the team, we felt like this was a time where we could really kind of grow in terms of what we were doing, adapt to the training, and do something really effective with it instead of just kind of throwing something in last minute that would kind of just make it a little bit harder to get through everything else. I would love to compete, these weekends. And so we are, and we're doing another kind of inter squad scrimmage type situation this weekend that we're really excited about. And there's been a lot of fun going on. We're doing a lot of different events and different distances again, which will be really exciting. And I think racing is racing, and it's how we handle it. We could, travel to a meet 5-6 hours away, and if we're not kind of mentally in it for a day or two or anything like that, we're kind of putting ourselves in a position where we're not really getting what we can out of it. But if we're racing with intention and with the mindset of competing, then we're winning anyways. And the message I kind of gave the team this past weekend after our meet and felt really good about the swims that we had is it's not about anybody else. We don't need to really worry what our the other schools in our conference, our competition is doing or performing, or the times that they're going right now. Like the only thing we can control in this sport is us. There's no defense in swimming, right? So for me, I cared way more about rest and recovery and making sure we were getting appropriate training, but also kind of having the focus and intentionality in our competing that really respected all the different things that we're trying to do right now.
Yeah, great message. Control the controllables, right? It's important in swimming, especially like you said. There's no defense, so you can control what's in front of you, but you can't control what other swimmers are going to do next to you. So that's great. And like when it comes to racing, and I guess your I don't know, view or just like thoughts on including like racing in practice? From the sounds of it, it sounds like, you get your swimmers up on the block pretty often. So, because I know, there's a surplus of information now out, and especially with the likes of people like Brett Hawk, just, kind of showcasing the importance of like stepping up on the blocks and just getting swimmers more apt to racing on the day to day, so that by the time they get to the meet, racing feels natural to them. They're like, I love this. They don't feel intimidated by the moment. So, is that something that you do within, your training blocks, is just get the swimmers up on the block, race? It could be even, throwing on a suit. I mentioned this question to Coach John Geisinger, and he said, well, the thing with suits is that they're expensive, and not all the time do we have that accessibility. And I thought that's a good point. But is that something that you have included in your training blocks too? Is just like throwing on a suit, getting more comfortable?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So we did it once last week. We'll do it once this week, and then we kind of have 3 or 4 days picked out in January, between our first 2 weeks back on campus and then Puerto Rico, which we'll throw suits on. And I agree with John. Like it's not always like accessible, but it's also one of those things where we swim different when we wear suits. And my kind of philosophy with this is we have to go fast if we want to go fast, and we have to train to hit new speeds if we're going to hold on to those speeds or match them, or not let our nervous system freak out in a race once we start going that speed. And so kind of learning how to do that and then leaning into it is really important. And then getting up on the blocks piece of it is, we get to NESCACs, and some of our top sprinter guys who will hopefully make a couple, 3 finals, they're getting up on the blocks 10, 11, 12 times in a weekend. To me, it's really hard to just like kind of load up for that if we haven't been doing that consistently during the year. I mean, the start is almost like the most foreign part of our sport if we're not replicating that part a lot in practice. So right now, our sprinters are going off the blocks 2 mornings a week, and then they're either a Friday night or Saturday as well. We're getting reps in, we're getting quality reps in, we're getting quality 25s. We'll really start developing like those first 25s of races as we get into January as well. And I think like that's something throughout my career, especially coaching sprinters for a number of years, like I have. Just like knowing how to appropriately get off the blocks and get out, and how to, make sure that that's not the hardest part of the race is something that I've taken a lot of care and time to develop. And we're not really there yet, but we're going to be there pretty soon. And that's going to be the really, really fun part of the year, because we start kind of seeing the training manifest in the speeds and how we're racing, and making racing more comfortable, so that the hard parts of racing, when something doesn't go right, we're more flexible in responding to.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think that's definitely good information for, again, other coaches to hear out there. And I think it's important at this point, like just incorporating more racing, and just that feel of stepping on the box, feeling fast if you have access to a racing suit. Again, it's not every day. It doesn't have to even be 3 or 4 times a week, but just including it in there, I think is important. Like I really do. I've thought about it a lot, and I'm like, I think it's a good indication of us moving forward in swimming, as opposed to sticking with stuff that we've been doing for such a long time, up to this point in the past. So I love it.
Yeah.
So let's backtrack now. Let's take a step back in time. I just want to kind of go through your journey in the sport of swimming. So why don't you tell me about your background in the sport of swimming, just kind of like how you got your start, and then eventually how you got into coaching, and maybe like who were some of those early mentors that really inspired you to kind of get into the profession. So yeah.
Yeah. That's I mean, it's quite the journey. I think like when I think back on it, and that really a lot of this started when I was in school here. So I went to school, and I had planned to go to law school after I graduated Amherst, and was kind of going through those steps prior to graduating and then post graduating. When I was here at Amherst, I during the summer before my junior year, I sustained a pretty awful back injury and ended up having to have surgery, and it was not really all that fun. But Nick really didn't let me slip on that. Like he asked me to help out on the pool deck, and And then my senior year, when I tried to take a step back, just like kind of discover some of my other parts of my identity a little bit, on campus, and I went traveling. Like he really kind of kept me connected to the team and to the sport just by talking about everything else. I traveled a lot my senior year, and every time I came back, I'd get a call or a text from Nick saying, get down to the office so I can tell him all about the trip or something like that. I just like, kind of going back to how important that relationship has been to me. It's, that those are the things that like kind of got me through a time where I really didn't know what my relationship with swimming was going to be. When I graduated Amherst, I got a job at a law firm in New Haven, Connecticut. Within like a month or so, the men's head coach at Yale at the time, Tim Wise, he was running a club team, and he asked me to help out during the year with when the college team was going, help out with the club side of things. And it was really fun because I worked with a lot of 12 and unders, and all the baggage I had of like being disappointed that I got hurt, didn't get to finish my career the way I wanted to, didn't get to accomplish some of the goals I'd had. Like 8, 9, 10-year-olds don't really care about that. To them, the responsibility from the coach is to make that as positive and fun of an environment as possible, where learning and growing has value, but we're doing that in a really experience-based way. And I loved that year. I really did. And I got to about January of 2015, and I graduated in 2014. And I went to Tim and Kevin, Kevin Norman, who's now the head coach at Brown, for the men's team, and kind of told them that I was thinking about trying collegiate coaching. I wasn't really loving the work I was doing at the law firm. I hadn't really put a lot of effort into law school applications. I'd spent a lot more time kind of researching swimming and going to college meets, and just was kind of rediscovering a passion from what I could see and how I could talk about the sport and the people I got to be around at that point. And so I talked to a lot of coaches, in NESCAC. I just kind of cold called and just asked about their journeys, and just really got a lot of positive feedback on, what the rewards of the job are, and also a lot of warnings about like, how hard it was going to be to kind of get to that point. And I really appreciated the honesty. I mean, from a lot of coaches, and a lot of the lessons and the mentorship. But so I started applying to any job I possibly could. And one day I got a call back from Jack Levitt, who was at Caltech at the time. I think the job paid very, very little, but it was one of those opportunities where you felt like I was stepping into something really special. And that team, so that would have been 2015, 2016. It was such a fun time because the Caltech team has grown so much now, and I'm so proud. I look at all the results. I follow everything that they do. And I don't even know any of the swimmers anymore, but I'm so proud of that team and how much they've grown. But Jack really had this idea of just like kind of coaching to the athlete and making the relationship the number one priority, no matter what the work was, and always trying to cater to that. And a place like Caltech, where the academic demands are so intense and so high, and I just have so much respect for what those students are trying to do with their lives. I remember that time, just like every day we stepped on the pool deck, and it was, let's make it as fun as possible. Even when, just like we're entering exams and the world is like kind of crashing down on them. It was like, we get to be here. We get to do this. And we were coaching under the mountains outdoors. And it was just a really, really fun year. And, I took up a lot of odd jobs around LA. I worked for a moving company for a little bit. I coached a master's team. I lifeguarded. I pretty much anything I could do to make a few bucks here or there. A dog sat, just to kind of make it work, and make sure that I could show up at the pool every day and just be there and really enjoy that part of it. I loved it so much, and the Rose Bowl Masters team that I got to coach that year, like I felt like they just adopted me. I mean, I didn't have the money to fly home for Thanksgiving or Christmas that year, and like they invited me over. They took really good care of me. Like those were some really, really fun moments where I just felt like swimming was loving me back in a way that was so new and exciting and fun, and I could just see the growth that I got to have. And see the like kind of the value of those relationships in such a different way, in such a sincere way. And I got to the end of that year, and Jack kind of pressed upon me that, like, I should take another step and find the next job. And And that was when Mark Benvenuti reached out to him and me about potentially stepping into a role with him. And that second year was like, for as amazing as that first year was, that second year was almost better. I mean, Mark and I mean, I have so much love and appreciation for Mark Benvenuti and just like everything he's done for me over my career. And I could talk days and days about him. I could listen to him for days and days. He's a really bright guy. He really cares about swimming and performing the right way. And I think that all the energy and passion and quirkiness that he would bring to like how to train, I think about a lot of those things the same way from the mental side of this. And I just think that we complemented each other in a really great way. I was able to support him in a really authentic way. And I think that can be sometimes hard as an assistant coach, talking to friends and people that have been in jobs or relationships with head coaches that they haven't been as thrilled with. I've been very fortunate on that front, and none as good as that year, really. Mark taught me a lot that year. We had just a really dynamic team. That was the year that the Connecticut College women's team got 10th at NCAAs. The men's team that year just took like this massive spirited run with a pretty small roster at trying to knock down Tufts and Amherst for second place. And I'll just never forget how fun it was, like kind of being the underdog. And Mark's made that program into something just so incredibly powerful and special that, it's hard not to kind of enjoy being a part of that. But I felt like that year was a lot of fun. And I had worked at the Longhorns swim camps the summer before and worked at them again. And I was invited to come down and be the volunteer coach for the women's team after that year with Connecticut College. And that was a really tough move. It like kind of looking back on it, mostly because I was just so happy at Connecticut College. And my plan in my head at that point was like, I'm going to stay here for a few years. When an Ivy League assistant job opens up, I'm going to go for that. And I'm just going to kind of keep, kind of moving up in these really academically elite situations. But Texas kind of came out of nowhere. And when Carol kind of asked me to come down and join and help them out and learn and kind of just be a part of, one of like the premier places of swimming in the world, that was a really hard thing to say no to. And so I'm really grateful I got to do that. I'm really grateful that Mark kind of gave me his blessing on it. And I'm really fortunate that I got to spend 2 years at Texas with some of the best swimmers, athletes, people in the world. I mean, Carol Capitani really took good care of me there. I got to learn a lot from her. I got to learn a lot from Rourke Fink. I got to learn a lot from Eddie, Wyatt Collins. I got to learn, and even more from the athletes. I mean, just what they go through on a day-to-day basis of training, performing, the pressures and stress is just something that I think is just so different and foreign from what we're kind of seeing at the NESCAC level. And not to say that one is better than the other or anything like that. I just think that they're so different. And I think that really opened up my mind of what is out there, what it takes to be really great. Some of the like really key lessons that we can learn from that level that extend way beyond the skills and the times and the splitting, just how we talk to athletes, how we kind of help them navigate some of the stresses and pressures, seeing things from those different perspectives. And then also just, when somebody's trying to make a world championship team or Olympic team and just like how that can be just such this like black or white defining moment, but as a coach, it's not, and trying to translate that and talk about it and learn from people who've been through that with athletes. That was completely invaluable. And then from there,
real quick,
yeah.
I just wanted to stop you there, but I wanted to ask, so just going back a little bit with your experience at Caltech and Conn College, like when you look back at those years, because obviously, as you've mentioned, you have great relationships with Jack Levitt and Mark Benvenuti. And it seems like you really just learned a lot from them and keep in touch with them. Obviously, you worked under Jack again at Georgetown most recently. And so, talk to me about just some of those just aspects of like working under them that maybe you really took, like you mentioned, sort of the relationship piece that Jack instilled with Caltech and just like what did you really take from them that maybe helps inform your coaching today?
Yeah, I think in very different ways, both Jack and Mark are just really authentic coaches. And I think that's a word that we talk about a lot without really talking about what the whys. And for Jack, something that I really respected about him and have learned from him is just being open and vulnerable about the different things that we're going through, and really treating the athletes with a level of respect that they've earned. Or, as you're trying to build those relationships, like kind of offering the respect to get it back. Um, and I think when you're working with 18 to 22-year-olds, it's really easy at times to not see them as 18 to 22-year-olds and see them as much older, and because they are capable of having conversations and being that level of mature. And I also think that sometimes we undervalue their maturity. And so I think Jack, the best thing that he does even now at Georgetown is he lets the swimmers, he lets his student athletes kind of define purpose for themselves, and define who they are, and treats them with that level of respect. And I think that it's never for me to project who somebody is onto them. It's always for me to listen and learn from them, and then find ways to kind of connect the dots to what they want to do. And then similarly, but very different, I think Mark does that from the competitive athletic kind of side of it, and really understanding what athletes need to perform at a really high level, whether it's a sprinter, distance swimmer, IM, or like just that his ability to kind of translate who somebody is into the work that they need to do to perform at a really, really high level is something that I really respect. And they're both guys to me that they would be as successful anywhere they went at any level of this, but they've really found places that they kind of can meet the want of the athletes. And kind of going back to the earlier part of our conversation, how special that part of it is they've both found that. And that's the thing that I think, as I've kind of gone through my career and then going to Texas and other places, I've always wanted to find a place where I could, be able to be that authentic version of myself, and kind of take who I am as a coach and match it up with athletes to help them get the things that they want.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I think like we talk about authenticity all the time, but yeah, like you said, trying to define what that really means, and why it's important it is kind of just a key piece of like reflection of what does authenticity really mean to me. So that's
Yeah.
great. And then moving forward, like you said, with making the jump to Texas, it wasn't really in the plan, right? Like, I mean, like you said, you kind of had the idea of kind of moving up in the ranks with these elite institutions, maybe working at an Ivy League school if a position opened up. But so with that Texas position, now that was an opportunity with Carol reaching out to you. That was based off of your camp experience, right? Working at the Texas Longhorns camp, and then building that relationship, and then Carol eventually, kind of like reaching out to you about this position. Is that how it landed for you?
Yeah. I think as I'm trying to remember, Paulina Zialek, who went on to coach at NC State for a number of years, was in the volunteer position before me. And when I went down to camps that summer, Paulina had kind of mentioned to me that she probably was going to take another position. And just to like kind of let it sit in the back of my mind, and let her and Carol know if it was something that I wanted to do. And then I think not even a few days later, Carol kind of approached me. And one of the things about the Longhorn camps I think is super invaluable is when you have the afternoon and morning off, you're allowed to go watch the Texas workouts. And depending on the day, they may even just give you a watch to kind of help get splits and things like that. And I'd been doing that both the summers that I'd worked there. Just anytime I got an afternoon, morning off, I would try to be down there and helping out, just talking to people, asking questions. I've got multiple notebooks filled with pretty much anything that any of those coaches said at different points, or any of the athletes on the team. And so Carol kind of just approached me one of those days and was just like, hey, Pauline is applying for some other positions. If this is something that you want to do, let me know. And so, it was definitely something that was like really like kind of sit in the back of my head for a while. And I didn't really know what to do with it, because it was something that you don't really plan or expect or anything like that. And so a few weeks later, she reached out again as, is this something that you want to do? And I said, yes, like 100%. I may never do something like this again at this level. In my head, I'd always wanted to be at more academic institutions from the like Ivy League NESCAC level, than being at more of a Power 5 school and some of the, different challenges that you kind of work with there. I felt like I related to somebody at an Ivy or an SCAC more, and I could offer more of myself in those authentic ways. But I knew that was when she really offered it to me later that summer. It was one of those things where I knew that I wasn't doing myself a favor if I didn't put myself in that really new environment and really kind of tried to glean as much as I possibly could out of an environment like that. And the thing that I remember when I talked to Jack Levitt about it, when I had been offered the position, he said, you'll be able to offer a level of experience and understanding of this level that's really different because you're newer to it, and because that like you're probably going to go back to more academic institutions after that time at Texas. You'd be able to learn so much more and just kind of carve out something really different as a part of your career and part of your experience. And that was what I kind of kept coming back to, was this could be this really special, unique time in my life where I get to be around as like the swim nerd and super swim fan. I could be around this really cool stuff, but I could also kind of cut my teeth in a way that allowed me to kind of have the options of who I wanted to be as a coach. And that's, as I look back on that time and working with those athletes and, kind of seeing the demands that they're under, because that women's team, especially, they're as good of academic students as there are in swimming, and, and just seeing the compromises that they would make and the choices that they would make to do the school and the swimming, and seeing, especially on the swimming side, the levels that they were pushing themselves to get to and the work required to do that. There's just a whole different appreciation for how this can be built and how the season planning, how the process of training can look. And, and I'm just really grateful for that, because I think it's granted me a lot of kind of adaptability and malleability in how I think about this stuff. And also just a lot of experience to draw upon. It's really fun when I can do film review with my swimmers and talk about some of these skill sets and things that were really foreign to me when I went down there, but offer that to them and kind of use that and use experience, use different ideas or lessons that I've gotten from some of those coaches in those situations.
Yeah. No, it's great. I think there's something to be said about embracing a challenge like that of maybe putting yourself in your mind, maybe in an uncomfortable situation, like something that you didn't have planned, but when you think more about it, it's like, this is a really good opportunity to not only learn from some of the best coaches out there, learn from some of the best swimmers out there, but then also, kind of take that into my own, I don't know, just like portfolio of places I've been and expanding my network. And I think that's great. And I was curious, like when it comes to, being a sponge at Texas, learning from all these coaches, what are things that stick in mind as like, I don't know, key pieces of information that you took from Carol or, Wyatt or Eddie, or even some of the swimmers, like things that maybe, you use in your coaching today?
Yeah. I could probably, because all the coaches there are really different, right? And they all bring just something different. And I think something that, Carol has really done in her, 10 years or so there, and building that team to where they are now is kind of really understand, like, she's really good at the things that she's really good at. And she's constantly tried to put people around her that cover the things that she knows that she can't always give the time or attention to. And I think, that one of the lessons that she gave me that I really, really loved, and it's like kind of been in the back of my head almost every day since, is, if we're spending 100% of our energy on our weaknesses, we're not even serving our strengths at that point. And so making sure that we have a staff around us and people around us that kind of cover our weaknesses and do those jobs better allows us to delegate, allows us to trust the people around us, allows us to really cover a lot of our bases to be really effective as coaches. And she talked about that all the time. There's only so much she can do in a given day, but by doing those things with a really high level of intentionality, of really respecting the time and effort that her athletes are giving her, there's an opportunity to really kind of grow constantly. And I think that growth in that one is kind of been pretty symbolic in terms of that team's rise over the last 4 or 5 years, especially. And I think learning from Eddie is always like a really, like, unique situation because there's nobody like Eddie. And I think that we know that based on the success and everything like that. But I think every one of his athletes would tell you that there's just like a different level of respect and trust there. And I think, you know, something that Eddie I just loved is just how calm his demeanor was all the time. And, you know, it wasn't the big yelling, screaming. It wasn't the, you know, tons of, you know, like just high pressure demands. You know, he was very much just, you know, what are we trying to get done, and how do we do that, and how do we, you know, kind of appreciate where the swimmers are at. And I think one question that I remember he asked me is just like, where do you want to end up in all this? And I just said, I want to find somewhere that I can really relate and speak with the athletes and really kind of build that respect two ways. And you know, and that was like a really kind of pivotal kind of lesson for me, where he responded to that of, you know, that's what we're all trying to do. And I love that. And I love that, you know, no matter what level of swimming we're at, we're all trying to kind of learn and grow and help our athletes at the best way we can. Even if we mess that up sometimes, if we know the intentionality is there and we know that the want to kind of serve and advocate for our athletes is there, we're going to be really successful. From the swimming side of things, you know, I think it's really interesting. We did these goal talks with the women's team, and what they were was like basically every day, for a stretch, we just kind of let different people speak. And you know, without going into too much detail, I just remember one person just talking about like, part of this is really just wanting it really, really bad. Part of being at the highest level, being an All-American in Division One, being, you know, at any level, being successful is like, you got to be really clear and purposeful in what you want out of this. And it's, you know, if there's that shred of doubt, if there's that part of you that isn't totally bought in, if there's that part of you that is just kind of carrying resentment or anger towards like training or anything like that, like we're not really taking steps forward. We're just kind of fighting tooth and nail to get where we want. And I think all ships rise in a high tide. And I think that something that I loved about coaching there was that constant want to get everybody on board, moving in the same direction at all times. And the closer we got to that, the more success we had. It's just like those two things go hand in hand, like our love and care and respect for one another, and our accountability to one another. You know, that's more important than any set or training plan or split or skill is ever going to be. Just knowing that we can race and we have, you know, 40, 50 of our teammates cheering behind us is that there's no feeling like that.
I liked what you said too, just like all ships rise in the high tide. And just yeah, having the awareness that, you know, we all want this really bad at this level. Like we're not here to mess around. You know, we're here to kind of get behind each other and give it our all and reach the highest level of performance that we can. So yeah, it just sounds like a great experience and great building blocks, learning from, you know, these great coaches, great people. And certainly like with the likes of Eddie Reese, I feel like anytime Eddie talks, you know, you listen, right? Like he has that sort of like, I don't know, just like cadence about him, I guess would be the word, or so, you know, just like his demeanor, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's you know, I mean, obviously, you know, Eddie's been around for a couple of years, but you know, I think like something that I loved about getting to be around him and kind of, you know, even if I was on the other side of the pool deck, was just like that. Just he showed up every day with the same mindset of, we're just trying to get better. We're just trying to get
Mm.
better. We're just trying to get where we want to go. And you know, you know, and I think that's something that Carol talked a lot about too. And it's just like, it's always going to be about us. It's always going to be about our ability to take care of ourselves and take care of our teammates and take steps forward. You know, and I think the best performances in this sport, they're not about racing anybody else. It's just about putting together something that we're really proud of. And you know, over and over again, for all the stress and pressure of trying to do some of the things that they are at that level, you know, the thing that I always just have respect for is it's always about getting better, and it's just
Mm.
finding ways to take those steps forward, even if they're small steps some days.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's a great message, absolutely. And then talk to me about, you know, finally getting that full-time position, you know, at an Ivy League, you know, going to Yale and spending the 4 years that you did there, sort of navigating COVID. Yeah, just what was that learning experience like? What was it like finally reaching that Ivy League kind of position that you had intended to reach for and stuff?
Yeah, that was a really cool moment. I remember after getting that job and going out to dinner and kind of celebrating and starting to think about what it could be. It would be, it just kind of felt like for the first time in my life, I could really just be a swim coach. And I think to kind of like give context to that of, when I was, I had to work the swim camps, and as much as that was learning and growth for me personally, I mean, those were paychecks in the summer. When I was at Texas and volunteering, I, delivered groceries. I was a bouncer at a bar at night, and I would do that until 1 or 2 a.m. and then go to 5:30 a.m. practice. And it was, you just figure out ways to make it work. I coached rowing at a fitness studio. Anything I could do. And so getting the position at Yale, like never mind like how special that job was and how kind and gracious and open that Jim Henry was for me as a mentor, but just like knowing that I could just do that and think about that and just spend all of my brain capacity trying to figure out ways to help that team and help Jim, that was really, really special. It just felt like 4+ years of, wanting to have some autonomy in the sport finally coming to fruition. And Jim, he kind of it gave me the opportunity to coach the sprint group there. We basically were doing 3 of our days as like team workouts and 3 of our days as primary group workouts. And so those 3 days that I kind of got to design like the sprinting side of things and have that autonomy and agency to coach that group and offer them, like a really consistent message on that kind of skill work and development. I mean, I think that group, like, especially that first year with the likes of Henry Geiser, Joe Page, Philippe Marcoux, and on the women's team side of things with Iz Hennig, Lindsay Wagner, some of those groups, like we just were able to figure out some really cool ways to get faster and build confidence. And we really took this approach of we're going to build confidence into the swimming by doing a lot of race simulation work, doing a lot of like just really high intensity, high energy practices. The pools at Yale, I'm not sure if you've seen them, Seamus, but we have the 6-lane like exhibition pool in the basement with just these massive grandstands around. And we have this training pool on the 3rd floor. It's 5 lanes, 50 meters. And a lot of the primary group practices that we did that year as a team, we would put the buckets and all the power towers upstairs with one side of the 5 lanes. And it was just every practice was like an A final at Ivy's. It felt like that year. And I mean, just that group worked so hard. And I think it just kind of emboldened me to take some risks with training and, and then also, coupling that with, Jim was just a few years removed from winning the Ivy League title for the women's team. Had just taken over the men's team a year or 2 before that. It just felt like I was given this open door into seeing how to build team culture and learning how to kind of, work around other coaches, work around different groups and find ways to kind of collaborate and get better. And that's something that we grow through. And I think that that team is in a really great place right now because of his consistent message. But I think that, getting to like kind of offer that to younger coaches and myself, Molly Chamberlain at the time, and some of the coaches that are there now, I mean, just he constantly leans on these really energetic, bright people. And it's just like, it's no wonder that they keep having success after success. I mean, he knows where to kind of open the door and he knows where to be the man. And he constantly is putting us in great spots. And so it felt like that time of my life was like this both like massive learning curve of seeing things fail and seeing some mistakes but also this like massively protected environment of you're allowed to do that and we want you to do that and we want you to figure some of this stuff out and ask for the help and ask for the different things that you might need to kind of push the overall team goals and overall team message too. I mean, that was always like kind of the conversation is finding ways to do things individually to support a bigger team idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it sounds like, you were really empowered, like as a coach stepping into that role to just, experiment, get creative, fail, but then also see if like something will succeed, right? Like have that balance, like you said, of kind of having this excitement of now fully focusing your energy on coaching and not having to do the hustle and the grind of, not being paid to coach and kind of having to work around that. obviously the experience being invaluable, but now having that accessibility, and being empowered by the head coach there to just like, just try things and see if it works, see if it doesn't. And that sounds like a really, just like, I don't know, formidable experience, for you. And, I'm sure for other coaches who have had a similar experience too.
Yeah, no, I think I owe as much, if not more, of my like coaching development to Yale and Jim Henry. I just like that was just a really special time for me to kind of not just be running a stopwatch, but figuring out how to really kind of do some of this on my own, but also do it within a bigger team context, which I'd never really been exposed to before.
Mhm. Are there any like memories or moments that like are just like, kind of in the forebrain of like those were some of my favorite, moments while you were at your 4 years at Yale, or yeah, just any that kind of come to mind?
Um, I mean, there's a million I could honestly run through. I think that first year, the men's group was just stellar, and Henry Geisert was just probably one of the best leaders I've ever been around that year. When I was applying for the job, and I had lunch with a bunch of the athletes, and most of them were in that group. I just remember they were asking me like, what's your training style? And Henry was kind of sitting there quiet, and then he goes, uh, you know, I'm going to NCs this year. How are you helping me? And I was like, I'm taking this job. Like that's it. Like just being around somebody with that mindset was so cool. And we had some absolute masterclass practices, where it was really just about like finishing races over and over. And that was the year that Dean Ferris was redshirting and things like that. But we went to sorry, wow, that was a slip. To Ivy's that year, and that men's team, they won the 2 free relay, they won the 4 free relay, and then a week later we went to a last chance meet, and our 200 freestyle relay, which was Philippe Marcoux, Joe Page, Henry Geisert, and Michael Blank. They tied the A cut in what was the last opportunity. We swam it, and fall started in the prelim session at Princeton, and then we time trialed it after. We weren't going to get to swim it a third time because we had fall started, and they tied it. And just like seeing him screaming was probably one of those moments that I'll just never forget. Next year was wildly difficult because that was COVID, and so that group didn't even get to go to NCAAs. That meet was canceled, sadly, and obviously for the right reasons. But that whole next year was like kind of like we were waiting to go back and waiting to figure it out. And Henry had graduated, and then we get to that third year, and that year the women's group really just took off. I mean, that was Hennig got fifth at NCAAs, and that was really special. That day was really cool because I don't think that meet had gone the way that either of us had planned, or the way that is had trained for it. They had been really outpacing anything they had ever done in practices the 2 weeks up to that, and it was just a really like what could happen. And then we get to that last day of the meet, and they were thinking a lot, and we ended up just changing the whole warm-up routine and everything into that day. And it's just like, we have nothing to lose. Today's different. Everything about today is different. The whole timeline, everything is different. And went out, dropped a half second on 100 free, squeak into the A final in eighth, and then at night drop another 0.2 or 0.3, and get fifth overall at NCAAs was just so special. I think those are probably the two biggest memories is those two, moments of just seeing people like really break through and get what they really, really wanted out of all the work that they did.
Yeah. Yeah, no, great moments, great memories. And that's, I think that's part of the reason of why we enjoy coaching so much, and just like seeing the performance pay off, and those moments that, I heard one coach, it was actually Coach Greg Perini at Denison. I'm releasing a podcast with him shortly, but he said it's like a spiritual moment. That's all he can describe it as. It's like a spiritual thing, just seeing the elation and like the joy on people's face when those moments come together. So
Yeah, I don't think we ever give, like, I think as coaches, like something I forget is like I get to spend those like 4 or 5 hours with an athlete on a given day. When we're at the peak of training or on training trip, and we talk about those little pieces, and what we really want. And like those are still our athletes' childhood dreams. Like that's something that I
Mm,
try to like. It's easy to not think about, but it's something that I try to remind myself is, we've got people on the team right now that all they want to do is break that school record, and just knowing how special that feels to them. Like that's something that they've been thinking about since they were 16, 17, or some of them going a specific time that they've been thinking about since 12, 13. Like getting to be a part of that is the greatest privilege as a coach that you can ever have. And knowing that your small role of just being support and positivity in the days that, the lows feel really low, or navigating those days where it's not quite connecting, all that stuff is worth it. And I'll choose that one smile or that one moment. Even if I get one more as the rest of my time as a coach, just because it's worth all the hard ones.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. And just kind of wrapping up last few questions, just circling back to obviously now being at the helm of Amherst Swimming and Diving, like, what's your vision for this program? Like, what impact are you trying to make? I know Amherst is kind of always in that upper echelon of teams in the NESCAC, obviously in a very stacked conference, right? Like always kind of in that top three range with, the likes of the powerhouses of Tufts and Williams. So yeah, just what's the vision for this team?
Yeah, I think I'll be honest with you. I think as a coach, it's really hard for me to like name what my vision is and project that onto them. I think like the coolest goal in my head that I could ever possibly see happen here, and be a part of is the men's and women's teams both winning SCACs in the same year. I just think that would be indicative and representative of, the culture being at the highest level could possibly be, having a year where everybody's kind of locked in and going the right direction, knowing that the people here now really planted the seeds that they may not see grow on their time on the team, but knowing that the work that they're doing is laying the groundwork for the people that come after them to do the things that they want to. I mean, I'm so proud of this group for the way they bought in and taking care of each other. Transitions are hard, change is hard, and we try to limit change in some areas, but the way that they've advocated for each other and helped me learn and grow with them has just been, it's been really fun and exciting, and feeling like they understand that things are going to be a little bit different, that we want to get better, and they understand that I want that for them too is really special, and there's that respect going both ways. But I think like, pie in the sky, if I could have one thing ever happen and be both teams winning in the same year, and that is, a hard goal because of how great and how impactful, Coach Custer, Coach Hoyt are right now. Mark is never going to let Connecticut College fall too far back, and I just like I really really respect how hard of a goal that is to name, but it's also, to me, winning a championship is way more to do with culture and camaraderie than it does with training and sets that we give, and so getting to that mountain where both teams win in the same years, to me, is everybody, this whole team winning.
Hmm. Yeah, I love it. Great answer. Yeah, like you said, not certainly wouldn't want to project, certain things or on the team, obviously, but at the same time, just having an idea of like it would be a really cool moment to capture these team titles in such a stacked conference. I think ultimately just helps kind of just the motivation side of things, and I think that's
Yeah.
great. It's really great.
Yeah.
Well, good. And then final question, as kind of apropos for the name of the podcast here. Are you a fan of get out swims? And if so, do you have any that stick in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I love a good get out swim. I think that especially on training trip, they're really special, and that's not at all a hint towards my athletes. But I think, trying to pick one or two. One that we did last year, the sprint group down on training trip, with Georgetown. We did prove it 50s all trip, and so that was our morning workouts were typically team general workouts. The afternoons were all primary group specific, and so we had the sprinters, after they warm up every single day, they hop up on the blocks and throw 50 for time. And we got to the end of the trip, and I think I promised them, like, we're gonna start a set with that, and if we do it, like, we're not gonna do the set. And if we the doing it was if we go faster than we had at any point, all trip, and every single person in the group did. And it was just like this, like, really like fun moment where everybody was cheering each other on, celebrating, just like that was a really, really special one. Trying to think another one back in the Yale days. I think it was my first year there, maybe. Philippe Marceau. One of my favorite things to do in 100 training is negative split 50s. So, like kind of doing race pace into a negative split best effort 50, and seeing how fast that time could be. And we were really trying to train a no breath last 25 at that point with that group. And it's probably something you've heard. That's something that is becoming more and more popular, especially with like the Josh Landos of the world. Caleb Dressel's been doing it in his 100-meter free for a few years. But that was something that we were actively training for almost every day. We were doing no breath sets, everything like that. And so I told Philippe, I was like, if we can go under 22.0 with a no breath last 25 and you negative split it by a 10, like that'll be the end of practice. And I think he went like 21-7 or something like that from a push. And he was out. I mean, it must have been like, I don't know, 11-1 to 10 something. It was really impressive. And it just like kind of gave a lot of confidence to that one skill for a lot of other people, because I think at the time he was the one struggling the most with the no breath part. He could do the negative split part, no problem. But making that choice to put the head down was harder. And, he'll tell you, if you ask him now, like he really loved that stuff because it was just like out of box, hard, difficult challenges that put us in a space where we had to like really learn what mattered out of our goals if we were willing to do some of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I love it. Giving me some ideas too in my own coaching. So I love it. Well, Connor, thanks so much for joining me. And I'm looking forward to following along with Amherst swimming and diving throughout the year. And certainly, we'll reach out to you if I have any questions myself. And yeah, thanks so much for doing this again.
Yeah, Seamus, appreciate it, man. And thank you. Good luck with everything this year yourself.
Thanks. All right.